How'd you like to listen to .NET Rocks with no ads? Easy. Become a patron. For just $5 a month, you get access to a private RSS feed where all the shows have no ads. $20 a month will get you that and a special .NET Rocks patron mug. Sign up now at patreon.netrocks.com.
Hey, Carl and Richard here with your 2024 NDC schedule.
We'll be at as many NDC conferences as possible this year, and you should consider attending no matter what.
NDC Oslo is happening June 10th through the 14th. Get your tickets at ndcoslo.com.
The Copenhagen Developers Festival happens August 26th through the 30th. Early bird discount ends April 26th. Tickets at cphdevfest.com.
NDC Porto is happening October 14th through the 18th. The early bird discount ends June 14th. Tickets at ndcporto.com.
We'll see you there. We hope. Hey, welcome back to .NET Rocks. I'm Carl Franklin.
And I'm Richard Campbell.
You know, we've been doing this stupid show for years and years and years.
What was the Jeff Maciolik line?
Yeah, we used to have this disclaimer. The
disclaimer at the beginning of the show.
The opinions expressed in .NET Rocks are stupid, and you're stupid for listening.
That's it. On that, what was that? Was that 100? I think it might have been 100.
I think that was 100, yeah. We're coming up on 1900 here, which we're going to do at Build with Mr. Scott Hanselman.
Yeah, I thought that would be fun.
That's going to be a
fun
milestone.
There's this whole idea of like odd shows. I remember this being your problem at show 100. It's like, what do we do for an odd show?
Yeah.
And then, we had some fun with it. And then it was my problem.
Yeah, for a while.
18 more of them later, I'm like, I don't know what to do.
And then it kind of stopped becoming a milestone, right? It was kind of, another 100 shows. Big deal.
We always do something fun, right?
Yeah, we always do something.
Got to do something with
Except for don't listen to show 300. I think we did that from a bar.
We were a bit smashed.
In Montreal, and it was terrible.
It was something. I apologize.
But I think 400 was where I interviewed you, and that was great.
It was fun.
If I remember correctly. Okay,
I don't know. It's a lot of shows.
Yeah, it is. Let's get started with a framework.
All right.
Roll the music.
Okay, man, what do you got?
Okay, so if you notice, I got a little goose honk here. My voice is a little shaky. I played a gig last night. It wasn't a band gig. It was a solo gig with Amy Coffey, who I've been playing and singing with for years.
Awesome.
And my voice is a little hoarse, so I sort of came in at the last minute and grabbed this article that I read that I thought was interesting. It's a Wall Street Journal article, the AI gadget that can make your life better and two that definitely won't. So I mean, that's clickbait right there.
Totally.
So it turns out the two that won't are the Humane AI Pin and the Rabbit R1, and both are sort of these things that you wear or talk to, and they're supposed to be like...
They're like the Star Trek communicator little tap things, right?
Yeah.
You sort of wear them on your shirt.
And they're connected to an AI like ChatGPT or something else.
Right.
But so here's the one that she really likes. Get this. The Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
I mean, the form factor's good. It's not so much are these good, or does anybody notice if you're wearing them? And at least if you're wearing Ray-Bans, that's a different douchebag problem.
Did you just say that? You can't say douchebag.
Oh, sorry.
You're supposed to be a polite Canadian.
If you're wearing Ray-Bans inside, I got questions.
Well, apparently you can get them tinted or not tinted, I think.
There you go.
And that would be kind of a deal breaker for me if they were only tinted.
Right.
Because, what am I going to wear at my desk?
Yeah.
Oh, if I'm at my desk, I can just type to ChatGPT, I guess.
Yeah, you're going to be okay.
Anyway, that's what I got. It's an interesting read, and you can...
I do think the thing with the Ray-Bans is they've nailed the form factor, right? Like, this is what everybody wants, it's hard to tell. But I also feel like people will adapt to a different form factor once the product is compelling. Mm-hmm. And in my experience, none of these products are compelling yet.
Not yet, but she makes a good case for this one. I mean, you can ask it what you're looking at. You can ask it questions. Cool. And I have a new name for she who starts with A.
Mm-hmm.
And I may be starting a trend here. Shalexa.
Nice.
It all started because my wife refers to her ex-husband as idiot.
Right.
But then she wanted to put a little more emphasis on it. So it became shitiot.
Nice.
So putting a sh in front of anything that you think is
seems to fix it, makes it better.
Well, it's an intensifier.
There you
it's
go.
A linguistic intensifier. So it makes it more okay.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So if my coffee is bad, I would say, boy, this is some coffee right here. All right. That's all I got, Richard.
Cool.
Please, somebody stop me from talking.
Nice. I grabbed a comment off of show 1880, the one we did back at the beginning of the year in January with Jimmy Bogart talking about .NET 8 migration. Mm-hmm. And I bring it up, because we're with Shawn, and Shawn's been one of my go-to guys for years moving over to different versions of .NET around HTBox and related projects like that. And of course, that show kicked off a whole ton of great comments. And Lottie Pitcher said this about a month ago. Thanks so much for the episode. I was worried that I'm the only one still embarking on migrating .NET 4.8 apps. Oh, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Jimmy shared a wonderfully pragmatic approach with some useful pointers. Luckily, no web forms to migrate for me because you can't migrate them. Mm-hmm. Just some plain old MVC and Entity Framework code. First gubbins. Bridge building. Gubbins. You can tell, I think Lottie may be English. Actually, I know she is. Bridge building and strangling figs. Here I come. There's another good English term. Strangling figs.
Yeah.
And also +1 for a hangfire. And hi, Richard. It was a pleasure to meet you in Seattle. It was nice to meet you too, Lottie. We hung out at the MVP Summit.
Cool.
I may have made some paella.
You may have
on a rooftop patio, because that sort of thing happens to me once in a while.
Oh wow. That's amazing.
I agree, Lottie. The migrations are ongoing, but plenty of apps also staying in place. That's a great conversation all by itself about what do you migrate? What do you replace? Is there another way to tackle this? If I was still wearing an enterprise architect hat for pay, I'd be really looking at Power Platform for a lot of these old web forms apps, just because why would I redo these when the workflow's changed? The main thing we've done is validated what's good for. It's like assess the app, work with a domain expert, get a new client in front of it, build some back-end parts.
Learn Blazor. You could do that too.
It's one way.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for your comment. A copy of Music Code By, it's on its way to you. And if you'd like a copy of Music Code By, write a comment on the website at .netrocks.com or on the Facebooks. We publish every show there. And if you comment there and I read on the show, we'll send you a copy of Music Code By.
And you can definitely follow us on Twitter if you like. We've been there for years, or X or whatever it is today. Might be Y tomorrow.
Mostly Y.
I think it should be WHY. But the cool kids are hanging out. The cool kids are hanging out on Mastodon. I'm at Carl Franklin at techhub.social.
And I'm Rich Campbell at mastodon.social.
And that brings us to Shawn. Shawn Wildermuth has a great bio. You can go read it. It's long, but I'm just going to pick out the important words, okay? VIC-20.
Nice.
Microsoft MVP. Client Dev Insider. ASP.NET Insider. Pluralsight. Books. Many books. Speaking at international conferences, Wilder Minds, and I believe his blog is still at wildermuth.com, WILDERMUTH.com. Also a filmmaker. His first film was a documentary about software developers today called Hello World, the film. And his films are at twainfilms.com. I think that's about it, Shawn. Anything new that you want to say?
No, that's all incredibly true.
His 14th solo episode with us.
Wow.
Yeah. Not counting the various panels. You were always good for a panel when I was put stuff together. I could usually, if you were there, it's like, can you jump on this and talk a bit? You pretty much guaranteed.
I also must say that you have a nice collection of bobbleheads behind you. Look at that. Did you see that, Richard?
Yeah.
One of them that looks like a chicken. A chicken bobblehead. I'm not sure.
I don't even know which one that is. I don't have a lot of bobbleheads, but there's a...
Could be my eyes, too. I don't know. Mold.
Yeah. I have a great... it's not on this shelf. It's on another shelf, but I have a Fauci bobblehead that I quite like.
Wow. So like, people come over and they're like, is that Anthony Fauci? Like, yeah.
You like bobbleheads of 80-year-old men. That's something.
Yeah.
Well, and I told you I couldn't see the chicken because I'm getting old, but I think we might be apropos of what we're talking about today.
I think it might.
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about today, Shawn?
Old guys.
I'm an old man.
No.
We met in Malmo, Sweden for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how many years ago.
It was a few.
And we're all vaguely more gray.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just some of us more vaguely than others.
And I turned 55 this year. I got my first job at 16. So if you do the math,
yep,
it's a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of at this changing point in my life of figuring out what the last chapter of my career is. And so I've been thinking a lot about what that looks like, because in a lot of ways, software is sort of a young man's game in some respect. At least that's the picture that people have.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you get this person that will work 20 hours a day right out of college and who has 4 projects on the side and successful open source project that they're, trying to monetize, whatever. Like that's the way it feels. And so I'm in the spot of like, what do I want to do, and what is retirement even a thing? Like,
yeah, great question.
I love this job most days. I mean, we all have our days.
And to be clear, you've been self-employed for a long time.
Yeah, I've been self-employed since about 2007.
I think we all have for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm not employable. I wouldn't hire me. I'm a pain in the ass.
No.
Richard went right to self-employed to retired.
Well, I was talking to Richard about this earlier, about he's entered his prepper phase, so I kind of like that.
There you go.
Prepper.
Wow. Did I lay down some irrigation lines for the new vegetable beds that we put in like the past couple of days? Yeah, I did.
Yes, you did.
I installed hose bibs, several of them.
I don't even know what that is, but it sounds like old man work.
It sounds like I'm so lazy I don't even want to water my plants.
We're going to rename this 3 Old Guys Talk About the Old Days.
There you go.
Well, it's interesting because I'm proud of a lot of the things I've done in my career. Like everyone, there's probably a couple of rough spots that I'm not particularly proud. And with the years I have left in this job, I've really been thinking about what's important to me. I'd love to make a difference. I've always left money on the table because I wanted to have, a life that I wanted to live. I always thought, I'll start a startup. And then I realized how much work that is. And I sort of back away because it is, it's a lot of work. And, the last chapter, was mostly training. And now that's so saturated that, I'm thinking about what's next. I've been training for the last 15 years and is that the route that a lot of people take? Like I look at, I'm certainly not the typical developer out there, but what do people look at as they're, approaching 60 in their careers? If what you want to do is be an individual contributor, I think at my age, that's a really difficult thing to try to find. And so enterprise architect or
that's what was my thought. Is like, is this where architects come from? Well, you don't see the manager word. Good Lord. I
hope not.
No.
I was never a great manager because I tend to like people, and I found it very difficult to ask people for improvement plans and all that other stuff that they try to do to cover HR's ass. And
also to help people get better. I mean, for better or worse, I have been a pretty good manager over the years. And one of the things you're doing is helping folks be successful in their careers. Like that's the only metric that matters.
Right.
At some point.
Which I think you're
either helping individuals by, giving them advice or helping them that way, or you're helping the whole company by firing individuals.
Yeah.
Often you're helping that person too. It's like, look, you're unhappy. We're unhappy.
Yeah.
Like I know this sucks right now, but tomorrow
Right.
You're going to wake up going, good, this is resolved. Now you're going to have to figure something else out, but at least you won't still have the same old pain.
Yeah.
And for better or worse, like I'm very fortunate that I've done this long enough now that I've had people 20 years later come back to me and says, you said this to me and I thought very bad words about you. And the next day you were right.
Yeah.
I find it interesting that I think I have a personal persona that is sort of soft and gentle and
sarcastic.
Well, certainly sarcastic,
sardonic.
But when I look back of when I worked in companies, I was kind of an asshole.
Oh man,
a lot of the things I look back on.
Did you write that song with Dennis Leary?
Nice.
I didn't, but I just played at my desk.
Performed it, yeah.
Yeah. Constantly. That should be the new theme song to my my next set of videos.
Yeah.
And so the thing about I think getting older in this is I want to do something important. I want to do something that matters, and that doesn't mean that the next thing is going to save the world. Like I could work for an NGO or something. And that would be fulfilling, certainly. But it doesn't have to be that. What I don't want to do is what I felt like I was doing in the first 10 years of my career, which was helping people sell things to other people that didn't need them. Like it was, the number of commission reports I built just makes my eyes bleed. And it
can wear on you.
Yeah. And I just wonder whether that's typical, I didn't have kids. I didn't have some other things. And so retirement feels a little different for me than maybe for some other people, empty nesters, Richard. And,
and me.
Yeah.
But you were also of an era where forms over data was the job.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that's just sort of reality too. I know we think we get to pick and choose our work, but it's also, you only get to pick and choose from what's on the buffet.
Yeah.
If the whole buffet is deviled eggs, guess what you're eating?
Yeah, exactly. And, I started up and, waterfall was the new method of building software, right?
What, having a plan? Oh, okay.
Yeah, having a plan. And it's interesting. I enjoy learning the new thing, and I don't think that's necessarily typical of people entering my sort of phase of career.
Yeah, that you still enjoy that, I think is interesting.
Yeah. Though there are things like I don't know if regret is the right word, but I felt it a little over my head in trying to learn machine learning, and now the whole LLM space is a little overwhelming for me, and I've sort of decided, there's other people that care about that more than I do. And,
right. So is this a first for you? Just hit a threshold where you're like, wait, you know what? I don't need to do this.
It's not really. I mean, there's React, there's Paradox, like Paradox. All across there were things that I was 80s. Like, yeah. I built a whole system with Paradox, and I don't want to talk about it. For the 3 people still alive that remember it, and 2 of them are on this call.
And 2 of them are on the call. Yeah.
Yeah. And is that important? It feeds me. Like, I find it interesting, learning new things specifically because that's kind of how I started. I don't have a degree. I'm not a, electrical engineer or something else. And, even the idea of like, is boot camp or college the right way for people to enter the career now? It's confusing to me.
Yeah. It's evolved. Right.
Yeah.
And this seems like the first time that there might be a glut of developers. Like 5 or 10 years ago.
I'm not so sure about that. I think what there is a glut of very junior entry level developers.
Sure.
But there definitely isn't a glut of, seasoned developers that would be able to jump into a demanding job because they're all working.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I absolutely agree with that. The idea that that there are, we push so hard for a number of years that we need more people, and we need more people, and a lot of people in boot camps made a bunch of money.
Yeah.
I think you're right that it's mostly bottom fed.
The constant challenge for me, Shawn, has been what's the difference, or where is that line between, this is all too new and I don't understand it, and old pain holding me back, like, am I just not getting this because it reminds me of that thing that I did that came back to bite me, and that's why I'm not going into this and learning it? Being able to understand yourself and understand what is holding you back from understanding something or learning something new is a very, very good thing to cultivate in yourself. And there's been many times where I have been shy to embrace a technology that a customer wanted just because I didn't, I had some old pain around it.
Right.
And I had to learn to get over that. And once I did, it's liberating. It's amazing.
It's interesting because I feel like I've been on this curve of confidence. Like coming up, I had none and imposter syndrome and all of that. And I sort of hit a plateau where I was like, okay, I got this. And probably because I've been doing so much training and less work, before the last couple of years, I was like, maybe I'm no good at this anymore. And I'm certainly not as quick mentally than I was at 30 or 40. Like I'm not, I wouldn't say cognitive decline by any means, but sometimes I got to look up everything. And the worst feeling I have, or the best, I can't figure out which it is when I Google something and my blog comes up with the solution, right?
Right.
I knew this at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the whole point of writing it down is so you didn't have to store it in your head.
That's what everybody says. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I certainly get that. And when is it time to, put up your spurs or whatever you want to call it? I enjoy doing the independent route and working with companies and, coming in for, what I call high value consulting. I come in and I help them get unstuck and then I leave. But that means I'm selling a lot. Like I'm spending a lot of time trying to acquire it. Yeah.
I mean, the question is, would you consider taking a job now? Much less can you find one? You haven't set up your credentials to be employable. You've set up your credentials to be a consultant.
Yeah, it's true. And I'm talking to a couple of people about maybe, but part of it is like, do I want a job?
Yeah.
The other side of being an independent consultant, it's given me a lot of freedom, but also the cost of being a consultant, of maintaining your own health insurance, maintaining your own retirement account, and all of that other stuff. That takes time and money.
Sure.
And having a job at a Microsoft or a Google or someone sounds appealing because it's just less to worry about. And the older I get, I worry more about it.
Also, a lot more pressure.
Right. So, you seem to be picking an excellent time because at 55, it's like you got 10 more years in theory here.
Yeah.
You got lots of experience. Like if you were going to make a move, now's the time. I mean, one of the challenges I think you get into here now too is the compensation. Like you've had a compensation model based on consulting. Like what's the right wage for you going into a role now? Like I see a lot of folks now that with the amount of turnover that's been in the past 2 years, they're really struggling to get the same salary. And I think, like, is that just your salary expectations out of line more than that the industry has necessarily changed? Like, you haven't been on the market in a long, long time. You don't know what it is to hire in at that level.
Or what you're worth in some ways as a salary.
Yeah.
Right? My per hour rate is kind of high because of the kind of consulting I do.
Right.
But that isn't 40 hours a week.
Right.
And so how do you replace that?
It also doesn't need to be.
Right. And, certainly is never close to 40 hours because of all the other stuff that you have to do as a consultant to be ready and marketing and
doing your own accounting, all of that thing. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, producing YouTube videos every week and producing a newsletter every week, like all of that stuff to try to keep my name out there.
And arguably, if you're going to be hired in, it's because they value all of those skills. Like, I don't think you'd get to hang all that stuff up either. It's like, hey, you know how to make YouTube videos. Make YouTube videos for us now.
Exactly. Right? You know, if I could, I'd just get a job as a filmmaker. But I know how much documentary filmmakers make.
Yes.
Or how little. Or how much it costs.
Well, having a full-time job usually is the requirement.
Well, and again, like with the music thing too, right? Like, you both like playing. It's like you're not making careers as musicians because you've gotten hooked on an industry that happens to pay extremely well.
Yeah.
And it is, I would argue it's out of line.
Yeah.
Right. There's almost nowhere else you can go that makes this kind of money for the effort.
Especially, you know, without a degree in those sorts of things. Like
But I think it's really true that it is so valuable if you can solve these problems in a timely manner, find where the issues are, solve them, and bring forth product that's all electrons, and have it work and have it do well the right way. I think people will legitimately pay a lot for that, and that's why
there's a reason software development is so well compensated. It's because when software is done well, it's insanely valuable.
Yeah.
Although rarely do we really own that math. The number of times I talk to tech people and say, do you have any idea what the value of your software is to an organization? Like, can you talk hard numbers? And it's almost never that they actually know what the impact is. Like, we double the performance of this team. This sales pipeline is entirely automated. Like, those kinds of metrics. Most people don't take responsibility ultimately for what their software can do.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, you know, that very idea of that, I think it gets lost that enterprise development is sort of looked down on and not valued, whereas the internal software for most companies is the difference between having a business and failing at a business.
It's the secret sauce of that company.
Yeah. And you know, I think the older I get, the more I care about what the business does.
Yeah. Well, you get savvy to that because ultimately it's how you justify your high rate is that you do press against the ROI of a company.
Well, it's not even that. You know, earlier in my career, I got an opportunity to work on a project, and when I realized it was a keylogger project, I couldn't really afford to walk away from it, but I did anyway. And that becomes even more important now. Like, I don't think, you know, I hope they're not a sponsor. And feel free to cut this out.
We wouldn't take money from a keylogger.
No. I mean, like, I don't think I could go work for Facebook. It would just make me ill. But, you know, I wonder if that's the norm. You know, I used to think of myself as like a hired gun, and now I care where I point that gun.
Sure.
But Shawn, I think it's a luxury to be able to pick and choose like that, you know? And many people don't have that luxury. They have, you know, big bills that they need to pay. They require, because of their lifestyle, a big salary, and that's why they go for those jobs. Whether they like it or not, they suck it up and do it because that's what they have to do. And I think you're in a kind of a unique position where you can afford to say, you know, I want to work on something that means something, that changes the world in a positive way, you know, that doesn't just contribute to our sorry state of being hooked to our screens.
And I know that I'm in a place of privilege with that. Like, I hope I don't wake up one day and think that I'm better than other people that, you know, maybe don't have that choice. It was interesting when I did the first film, I realized that I came from a place of privilege, not just because I was a white guy, but more that I looked like a computer guy. So when I came in without a degree, they went, well, he must know what he looks like the comic book guy, therefore he must be a good fit. Like, that's...
Maybe it was the...
You know, I wish that weren't true, but, you know...
The Star Trek T-shirt, maybe, or the...
I mean, ponytail, everything.
Ponytail, yeah.
I mean... I didn't realize it at the time, but, you know, if I were a black woman coming into the same role with the same resume, I probably would have never gotten, past the door.
This is that front of the classroom effect, right? You don't, if you didn't look behind you, you'd have no idea you happen to be sitting in the front of the classroom.
Yeah.
And gentlemen, I got to interrupt for one moment for this very important message. And we're back. It's .NET Rocks. I'm Richard Campbell. That's Carl Franklin.
Yo.
Talking to our friend Shawn Wildermuth. And hey, if these ads bother you, you can get away with no ads if you go to Patreon and sign up to be a patron.
That's right. Patreon.netrocks.com.
We recognize that we're privileged. You're in this last decade of your career, in theory. I don't know why you'd stop. Like, I have no idea why I'd ever stop. Yeah. And I still care about this problem space, right? Like, how do we be better? How do we make better software? How do we help more people? Like, all of this is legit. Like, why not just stick to your guns, man? Keep doing the thing. Like, you help people. You know how to do it.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting because that's probably the most obvious and one of the options I'm looking at. And I just think that I don't know whether all careers are on these 15-year cycles.
Yeah.
My first 15 years was enterprise forms over data. My second part was more helping companies, build certain types of software. And then the last 15 have been training. And what do I want to do next? Where am I valued? I've just seen a lot of my friends at this age struggle to find a job and stay relevant in some ways.
Right.
Like even merging with a team of people that already know what they're doing, what does that look like? When you have 25 to 40-year-olds and then suddenly the gray-haired guy comes in, I remember being on the other side of that and sort of going, I guess we could throw him this thing that he'll know about. But there's a lot of condescension that if you're still doing this sort of job at 55, what does that mean? And
right.
Well, again, I think, Shawn, it's really relevant if you are one of those guys that you stay current and that you do not, play the get off my lawn card and I don't need that. And why the heck would anybody do that? You got to understand what the technology challenges that people are going through and the tools that they're using. Yeah.
Especially if you are at all interested,
Yeah.
Something you said earlier, I've made bets on technologies that worked and ones that didn't. And I think we've done shows on WinFS and Oslo. So, among other great technologies.
Well, we wanted to know what they were all about. So we were asking the right questions, I think.
And so, I never wanted to get into the I'm still doing Fox Pro space, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I could totally have been that guy.
Yeah. That wouldn't satisfy me at all.
Ask a COBOL developer what they're making right now.
Yeah.
In their 70s.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they're irreplaceable. There is no new person coming in. And that stuff just doesn't seem to go away.
Right.
So, is the equivalent web forms?
Or VB. So, apologies to VB programmers.
That a company's made a major commit to that and they don't want to give that software up. And so if they can find people they're willing to pay a premium to keep that stuff going for as long as it needs to go.
It's interesting. One of the bigger clients I'm working with right now is a small company, and their VB6 app has kept the business running for 30 years or 20 years, whatever it is. And they're moving away from it, not because it wasn't doing the job, but because the guy who maintains it
is retiring or whatever.
Retiring or, something worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the reality is that he knows that code base and no one really understands it well enough.
They left it in his head long enough.
Yeah.
That now they don't actually own it anymore, effectively.
Yeah. And it's taking a team of 5 or 6 people to replace it, right? Wow. It's not a trivial change. And I think a lot of companies are going to go through that. You had earlier talked about staying on 4.8 or not. Changing.
That's why I brought it up in the first place. I thought it was relevant.
Yeah. And that's, I was taught early on that old software is good software. Because it's, where all of its bugs are instead of having to discover them all.
Yep.
And I don't want to be on that train where I'm telling people, oh, but you have to move it all to React, or everything needs to be an app, or, any of that stuff. I like the new stuff, but I'm hoping I'm pragmatic about it,
Right.
I mean, that's the word that I've probably been too in love with my whole career, is pragmatic. One of my books was called that, and
it's a good word.
And I don't know how that really feeds into the idea of getting older in this job. I don't want this to become a therapy session for me a resume. But
I think it's very relevant because you have lived through numerous technologies and implemented them. You've seen what the pitfalls are in all of them. Usually there are common scenarios that follow through from technology to technology where you could shoot yourself in the foot. And so you have that unique experience that it's invaluable to companies who are doing things, even with newer technologies, to run it by you and say, hey, is this a good idea? Even if you don't understand the intricate details of the language or the mechanisms that they're using. I mean, you can just take one look at the architecture, nope, that does not smell good to me. And, based on my vast experience, I think you ought to try something else like this, perhaps.
Sure.
I think that's really, really valuable.
As long as you're right.
Well, that's true. I mean,
yeah.
Now suppose you're an idiot.
I have those days. I mean, what I find interesting is for developers as they go forward, I think developers of my age, or I hope so, that they see the fallacy of the fiefdoms that software developers tend to get into.
Sure.
Yeah.
Angular sucks and React is the only way to write anything. And,
right.
Whatever the technology going back forever, it's always been.
Yeah, I would hope you have enough experience now to know there once wasn't a React and there wasn't an Angular.
Yeah.
There could be a new thing that's a better way.
Right.
That gives us advantages in the current landscape of technology.
With our current team.
Yeah, and that everything's a compromise, right?
Yeah.
If you pick any technology, it's going to do some things better and some things worse. Mm-hmm. There's no way to have perfection in our industry. And I think that's hard to see earlier in your career. At least it was for me.
Yeah.
And this is where I think your younger developers look at the old man and complain, because you're going to equivocate a lot because you've seen enough to know there is no right way. You're not idealistic and they still are. And that's going to be a collision fairly consistently. It doesn't,
but also a benefit to a team, right? Having both, I think ultimately, benefits everybody.
It definitely was a theme on the show some time ago. We were talking about, are these scars of your past experience,
right,
wisdom, or are they holding you back?
They're holding you back, right? And that was what I was talking about before with old pain. Like, get over that as soon as possible. Force yourself to get over those things.
But I think it's a balancing act, because some things are wisdom, actually.
Well, they are, but they don't always apply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, being able to discern what is important and what isn't, I think is really critical.
And in many ways, the job, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to make a case to leadership to say, hey, this is a new stack. Some people are excited about it. I'm not saying we should jump in whole hog, but it's like, let's take a spike. Let's, and how would we know? How would we validate that this is going to be great for the team?
Right.
And an excellent approach and so forth. And that's, mature thinking. That now you're leveraging your experience to help a team to evolve.
Here's another great example. Let's say you have a team of young whippersnappers who are embracing this technology, and it's new technology, and they're still figuring it out, but they're convinced that this is the best way to go. And that you could whip up a Blazor app in 30 minutes and be done with it, and they want to go off and do something for a week or whatever. You don't play the productivity card by saying, well, we could do it in Blazor and be done in a day. You know what I mean? You can't do that, because it's not about productivity. It's about a long-term strategy. Is this actually going to work? And it probably is worth that team going off for a week and figuring out, even if the answer is, if they're smart, we can't do this. This isn't good. We tried this and it didn't work. If they're smart, and you'll know that when they present at the end of the week, and it either sucks or it does the job, and they've figured out what they need to figure out.
If there's one thing that's coming out of this conversation so far, it's the hard part here is being an IC. Like being a tech expert at this level of seniority is, unless you're going to stick with an old stack that nobody else is interested in, isn't a good strategy.
Yeah.
Consistently, the thing to do is helping a team be better. So using your experiences to help them evolve wisely, or to make the right moves, to interact better with leadership, like those kinds of things that you have experience with that maybe they don't. And that is, we're coming back to your original conversation, Shawn. You have been an IC for a long time.
Yeah. And it's a different sort of job. I've seen a lot of my friends really succeed with not just being an independent consultant, but, building a firm, having bodies and making payroll every 2 weeks or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And luckily I know that's not what I want to do. I might be leaving money on the table because of it, but there's
don't be so sure. You're also leaving a lot of stress.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the things that have happened to me over my career, the conversation I'm having a lot with people in their 50s running a consulting practice is, how do I retire? Because that business is usually a wrapper around them.
Yeah.
The conversation I usually have with them goes along the lines of, is there any sale that happens in your organization that you're not directly involved in?
Yeah.
Is there any piece of software delivered to a customer you're not delivered? Well, then you don't have a company. You have a wrapper around you.
Yeah.
There is nothing to sell.
Yep.
Right. It's only when a company functions without you that it's a potentially saleable product.
And it's an interesting idea. Years ago, I built a product to help people show off their tattoos in an app on a phone. Wasn't a good idea. Luckily, I built it first before I found that out. But
luckily,
I was talking to some business consultants. I was like, what do I have here? Do I have anything? And one of the things he said is, you might have a lifestyle business. And that was the first time I really thought about that. Like, when you own a restaurant, certainly you have an asset and all that other stuff, but you're making payroll for your family as well as the employees you have. It's not, it's not building the Twitter that you want to sell in 15 years when it's worth $1 billion. Right. There is that ceiling. And I feel that way about independent consulting, like, mostly so that I can hand them that they can pay me without having to have a 1099. That's the main reason I have a business, right? That's a big part of it. And luckily I haven't fallen into that trap of my customer list is valuable and I can sell it off.
Right.
No,
that's not a thing.
That's just not the reality of the business.
There's another element here that I want to bring up, especially for the listeners that are hanging in with us. Which is, you do have distinctly American problems too.
Absolutely.
Right. I mean, I've talked to a few folks in this span that are Americans who are, the big thing about hopping to a company now is the healthcare.
Yep.
Like individual healthcare in the US when you're getting older is horrific. Yep. It's very difficult. And for folks who have not lived in the US or just don't know this thing, like, and I'm a Canadian, I'm looking at you like, I don't know how you live like this. This is kind of nuts. But the reality that you can go take cover in a company now when it matters the most from a healthcare perspective.
Right.
When
you hit 65, you get Medicare, and that is certainly a goal, to make it to 65. But you're right, Richard. I mean, you live in a country where the country looks after you from birth to the grave, right?
And the old line is, how many Canadians have been bankrupt because they were sick? None.
0. Correct. Yeah.
Doesn't mean our care is perfect. Like, make no bones about it, right? No. We have plenty of problems with healthcare too.
Maybe the option is move, Shawn.
That's occurred to me. But
it's occurred to me as well, but I don't know.
Because the reality is, when I was younger, I wasn't paying $20K a year in health insurance.
Right.
That's a literal number I have to come up with every year if I do nothing, you know?
And you're not going to get much for it except if something catastrophic happens.
Yeah. And I need it more. Like, frankly, you know, I'm a big guy in my 50s. I'm not healthy, you know, every day, you know? That's always the challenge as well. I don't think I want to retire in the sense of I'm sick of doing this and I want to go fish every day.
Right.
Like, that's just not, I'm not made up that way.
Yeah. I don't understand that either. If I wasn't writing code once in a while, I would completely go crazy.
And, you know, trying to solve some issue, you know, even if my wife's my main customer, you know, that's going to continue to happen. Yeah. But I worry about how long I'll be able to, you know what I mean? Like, whether it's cognitive decline or just amount of energy. Like, I couldn't work 120 hours a week again like I used to. Like, my body would just give up.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't healthy then. It's just now you don't have a choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, the younger generation isn't tolerating that crap either anymore. Like, I think we are members of a time that celebrated that. And I think that time's over. I don't think it's a bad thing at all.
Yeah,
Not at all
either.
No. Yeah, you know, that's always my hope that you know, sanity and all of this, the bad press that crunch gets now, I think is an amazingly awesome thing.
Well, and I wonder if, you know, this is part of this industry finally growing up. We have been the Wild West for a long time, and there are folks incented to keep it that way.
Yeah.
I heard an interesting thing about the millennial generation is that, you know, now, with what's happened in the United States anyway, in the last few years, unions have never been bigger, right? Because young people are fighting for union rights. And at the same time, the benefits to union members has never been lower.
Yeah. And it's still a better option. And it's, by the way, also true in Canada.
Yeah.
That there's been an upswing in union support.
But a lot of it is because, you know, like what you said, this generation, they're tenacious. They fight. You know, they remind us of, you know, what the baby boomers were doing in the 60s in terms of social justice and all this stuff. They just are fighting because they're looking down the barrel of debt that would be crushing and an American dream that's drying up and a middle class that's shrinking. No, all right, I'm getting off my high horse now. But the point is they're tenacious.
There you go. But you're right. They were sold a bill of goods that it's apparent they're not going to get. And so they're pressing against the system, and good on them.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And as the last listener turns
exactly.
Up, it's like, all right, I've had enough of these three old white guys.
So I think that no software needs to take more than 3.5K. Right? In my day.
Yeah.
No idea. And I think you hit on the point of what are the values that are important to how we build software. I still am bumping into folks who care about cycle times and optimization. It's like, is that really the most important thing, or is maintainability more important today?
Yeah.
And then again, that having that perspective to go, I know this used to be valuable when I was, of an age. I'm just wondering if it's valuable now.
Yeah, because everything's matured. I've been doing a lot of minimal API talks. And the first question I get every time is, well, is it faster? I'm like, absolutely. It's faster than MPC. You can't argue that. It is faster. But you will never notice. Right. Because you're actually doing work other than just the transport, like the transport and the plumbing.
It's true. We got that query from a second down to half a second. I feel good.
Also, do I really want my API controllers in Program CS? I mean, I know you can move them away and create your own classes with minimal APIs, but that's not where I want that stuff to be.
Well, we can argue about that on another episode.
Well, I mean, I'm with you. I'm with you, Shawn. I love using minimal APIs when I can, but growing them and scaling them is just as challenging as maintaining API controller classes. And, and it can be done. I've done it. I actually showed how to do it in a Blazor train. Yeah.
And that's the way I teach it. But essentially we're recreating controllers without maybe some of the overhead. But, but I mean, interestingly, that is sort of on topic is, new versus old. Like
Sure.
That's really, I'm really coming into that is,
Yep.
am I gaining any benefit from the perceived notion of moving to something new?
Right.
You know, when people, ask me, when should I move all my MVC stuff to this? I say, you don't.
You don't,
There's no compelling reason. And I think that viewpoint comes with age.
Yep.
Because in my 20s, I would always move to the new thing because I was afraid that the old code I wrote was crap.
Yeah.
Right.
And especially if somebody was telling you that.
Yeah. Yeah.
These are useful, experienced developer skills. It's a lot of, I got to say, it's still political. Like you are balancing between the need of business, the capability of technology, and the need of a younger team.
Yeah.
But it is a role that I think a lot of groups would value, to have someone who has those experiences and can go and press against these things and can talk the talk. Like the number of times I've certainly been in the consulting role where they're like, I don't know how we've been trying to tell leadership this for months. How did you get it done? It's like,
because they're paying me by the hour, right?
Yeah.
That's usually
don't discount my rate, making them, forcing them to pay more attention, but also, language, like experience has some capabilities, right? That you learn how to communicate about certain things.
You're also not bringing up issues to have anything to do with keeping your job or getting a promotion
or improving your resume.
Or getting somebody else out. Right. Yeah.
And you have the new guy effect. Hey, I'm only here for a week.
Right.
So, right now we're out in shiny. Let's do it.
I don't understand your world. I'm a caveman.
I do feel like that sometimes, because
these are the things where we can be in service to others, that we can take those hits and we can press against those things and we can shape that language.
Yeah.
But the important part is not just for ourselves, that it has to be as part of a larger group.
Yep.
And to serve it all, I think in some ways, like everyone will be happier when X, Y, or Z is different. And I think as a younger developer, it was hard to have the confidence, or at least for me, maybe other people have had different experience, have the confidence to go, I know I'm right.
Yeah.
And
because sometimes you weren't.
Yeah.
I mean, you were young, you were making mistakes and learning, and it's hard to tell.
Enough about Oslo. Chris Sells is not going to be happy with me.
No, also, you're saying you would never work for Facebook. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah.
No offense.
No offense. He's not there anymore.
No, I think he moved on again.
Yeah.
He gets around.
Yeah.
All right, friends, we got to wrap this up. I hope it was useful for folks. It's a fun conversation, and it's certainly relevant for certain people. They're like, well, what happens next? Like, where do we go from here?
Right. Thanks, Shawn. It's always fun talking to you. Thought-provoking.
Well, this one's been a little depressing.
I don't think so.
We'll see what people think when they hear it.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Come on, Bob.
It might be a train.
Exactly.
All right. We'll see you next time on .NET Rocks.
.NET Rocks is brought to you by Franklin's Net and produced by Plop Studios, a full-service audio, video, and post-production facility located physically in New London, Connecticut, and of course in the cloud. Online at pwop.com. Visit our website at dotnetrocks.com for RSS feeds, downloads, mobile apps, comments, and access to the full archives going back to show number 1, recorded in September 2002. And make sure you check out our sponsors. They keep us in business. Now go write some code. See you next time.
Got transmitter bands by the FCC. Yes, I'm a